Oh, thank you, Zeb. And thank you, Zeb. I hadn't heard about Future Whenua until a couple of weeks ago when I had a call from Zeb, and we had a lovely phone conversation, and he asked me if I'd like to be part of opening up this, this wonderful weekend here. A very big thank to Greg and Rachel Hart. I haven't been to the farm here before, although I've been aware of it. Remember meeting Greg, who's probably, early 20s or a teenager, at a compost making session quite a few years ago. So he's been on the path to it for a long time. I'm Rachel Pomeroy. I live in Havelock North, the side of Timata Peak, a very special part of Hawke's Bay. I feel a real wonderful connection, I feel, to that area. I've been involved with biodynamics for the last about 25 years, and I've been keen on star watching, and I guess that was really almost part of my path into that. I mean, I already got to 40 but before I even knew the Southern Cross, but I remember from a child sort of just this, like the whole universe, and just a feeling that everything of the whole universe is knowable, but I don't know it yet. But, that a sort of confidence in the knowability of the world, as it were. Yeah, so I greet you all here today as fellow citizens of the cosmos. And I've worked with biodynamics in New Zealand, but also quite a bit in India with my late partner, Peter Proctor, the late Peter Proctor, I mean, and who passed away a few years ago. And after a wonderful life of working with biodynamics in New Zealand and India over 20 years or so. And so I've had quite a connection with indigenous agriculture, in both in New Zealand and in India, and seen that there. So I have found that the most uniting thing is working with soil and with stars, because it's so universal. And one time actually in India, we're often working with, within India itself, there's so many different areas and histories of people there, and people would come also from Asia and the Middle East. And so we often had such a mixture of people we met with. And though we may live in different countries and may speak in different tongues, when we cleave a clump of living earth, we breathe heaven's air as one. When you take a bit of that soil and you break it apart, and you can maybe see it's been a bean growing in your garden, and you see all those nodules, and just smell the richness of the soil and that crumbly structure. And so we can all smell heaven, can't we? It's a beautiful, we recognise that same quality wherever in the world we come from. Though we may live in different countries and may speak in different tongues, when we share the truths of heaven's stars, we dwell on earth as one. And just a couple of mornings ago, I took this photo here. I go out to the Atiarangi at Waitangi Regional Park on the coast, just by Awatoto on the south side of Napier. And it was been raining all night. It was a really misty morning. And so the Atiarangi was started to be made in about, partly completed in 2017 and instigated through particularly Piripi Smith and with the traditional navigation and revival of navigation in the Pacific. And each solstice and equinox, there's a sunrise event here with the traditional karakia and welcomes and then always there's kōrero from someone or other. And this time there was a lady in perhaps her 30s speaking. She'd been just a couple of weeks ago on a sailing to Chatham Islands with a crew of 16, and they completed the trips there and that back navigating by the stars. So, you know, there's this wonderful program going on with people learning navigation, learning to observe, learning to sail. And the comment that really touched me from this woman was, she said, you know, to be out there at night on the water and seeing the stars and the way they've been working with learning to navigate. And she said, you know, just feeling so connected because my ancestors were sailing the Pacific 1,000 years ago by these very same stars. And that really touched me, because in our world today, there's so much that people are feeling disconnected, and the issues around comes out in mental health in so many ways. But just the love of that moment, I felt so united with her because, you know, I love that too. And it's just like when we're out here before, I thought, oh, I suppose we're north facing here. But, you know, it's so lovely if you can step out and just see the Southern Cross, which is probably over here, is it? And then the, you know, the zodiac constellations or a few of the markers. So I know where I am. And I love this word, the firmament, because it is so firm. And this woman, you know, these same stars were there that her ancestors were navigating by. They'll be the same stars for whoever comes along next. And just to have that human capacity to be able to find your way from here to Chatham Islands with the aid of, and it, like everything, it's so much as observation of, you know, just knowing the wind directions and the sound, the appearance of the waves, and the sound of waves lapping on the hull of the boat as you're sailing and so on. And then the whole bird life and fish life, that's so much a part of that navigation. But back to biodynamics. Yeah. Dynamics, part of the name of it. And dynamic is about this real interacting and meeting. And it was we had such a dynamic experience just before when we were all up and we were meeting each other. And it was like you're moving around and you're interacting. And it's like, you know, a compost heap is like that social, is such an archetype of dynamic because you are putting all these ingredients together, and many of them are kind of waste that's left behind. It's the animal manure or there's crop waste, various things, and all come together and you're layering them or you're breaking them up a bit so you can get maximum interaction between things. So you haven't got just a thick layer like this of green grass, where you've got sort of thinner layers, and then you've got a bit of straw, and then you've got your cow dung, and, you know, so everything's touching a bit of each other, and you're getting maximum interaction. And then when it's through its process, all this interacting, then you've got this compost, which can be used by, you know, if someone loves growing tomatoes, it's great for the tomatoes. The same stuff can be good for tree growing or your grapevines, your vineyards. It's your individual initiative. You're making something that's fabulous for anyone. It's kind of universal gold. So, but the extra thing that comes in with biodynamics is that, this interacting between so many things, it's like, well, yeah, we've got our ecology, we know all the things that are interacting, but we're also, we're going upwards. Of course, the whole weather is interacting with everything, with our life, and the sun, we know the influence of the sun, but also the moon is there, and the whole firmament of the heavens, and then below us, equally or even more unknown. We might know our topsoil and a bit about the subsoil, and especially vineyard people are kind of into the terroir, and that's really reaching down into the rocks or the substrate beneath. But, you know, there's another 25,000 kilometres or whatever to the other side. There's an awful lot we don't know. Maybe, you know, narrow drills have been to 12 kilometres or so, but the rest is guessing what's down there. But actually, it's probably really important, and the whole lot is we're aware that there's an interaction on one level or another between all these things. And this Greek word, cosmos, is actually their word for order. And, you know, you hear this from earlier times that, you know, the earth and humanity, we're sort of a microcosm of the macrocosm. It's like this cosmos. So earlier people knew that the ordering forces of the cosmos, it's like the sort of wisdom, the order of life on earth is connected and ordered by the order of the heavens. And I mean, there's the obvious things like seasons and where the sun rises and things that we get to know on our own horizon. But the ordering forces of the cosmos, and this is, you know, it's something that works naturally into the earth, and well, historically it did, but a lot that's happened in the last few hundred years has really cut us off from that. And in biodynamics came a lot through Rudolf Steiner, who was born in the 1860s, and in 1924 he gave a course to farmers at the request of farmers. Many farmers about that time had noticed, and many of them were basically organic farming, but noticing like the lack of viability of seeds, the lucerne crop would only persist for 5 years, it used to persist for 20 years. The potatoes didn't taste so good, all these things. And into this sort of vacuum, of course, there was the whole chemical farming was initiated, and yes, that could give these magical boosts. But there were farmers who came to Rudolf Steiner and said, well, you know, how do we revitalize the earth? And so he gave these 8 lectures, and in which he brought a lot of background. And now it's not like, well, I suppose it is all-encompassing, but to bring this reconnection back to the ordering forces of the cosmos, the wisdom of the heavens, the wisdom of the earth. And it's a system that trusts in wisdom, and a bit like, you know, a lot of us feel like our bodies know how to work with illnesses or new diseases or things that come along, and we've got this immune system, and we just kind of do what we can to strengthen that or work in positive ways with that, but that, you know, our body kind of knows what to do, where it's much more clever than us. And this is the thing when we develop a really good soil. It is, there's a lot of inbuilt wisdom in the whole of the soil, the diversity that arises, and all of nature and all the interactions that go on. So just a quick visit of the preparations which Rudolf Steiner gave to, and I perhaps should just say a little more about his life. He was a person who, well, I guess could kind of see the forces of nature working. And in earlier times, there were a lot more people who, you know, like the herbalists who would know the healing qualities of plants. And, you know, through observation and work and things included, but just had this greater sense of qualities and really seeing things. And just talking to you, Robbie, before, was it, and because you spoke to us out in the field, and, you know, you were saying how now, after all your practice of observing, how now when you're just driving along, you can see so much more as you just, even as you're driving by from the road, about the qualities of the soil and the kind of level of balance of that situation, the vitality of it, and so on. And, you know, we can all become more and more skilled through observation. That's what I loved about being out in the field with you then, just, you know, that, yeah, working directly with this, and certainly you're measuring parameters, but you're obviously aware too that the soil does a lot of work itself. You know, what can we do to assist the soil to be as wise as possible and to come to its best solution, so that in a way, you know, when we come to a new piece of land or whatever, just what is it that we can help it do the best it can for this weather, the soil types, that everything, and come to its best balance. And, you know, our biodynamic vineyard people know that that's where, with the biodynamics, that helps to get the best expression of that land or that whole situation. You can taste it because it's bringing all those factors in. In India, it's the tea and coffee growers who love the biodynamics because it's where you're tasting the difference, but it comes through. And perhaps just quickly, it's kind of acknowledging the nature of soil. So making a preparation, a cow horn preparation, where cow manure is placed inside a horn of a dead animal, dead cow, a cow's horn, and placed in the soil. We usually do a bunch of, depending how much land you want to do, but placed in the soil over the winter time, and it goes through a natural composting process in the soil, so that when you lift it up, it's this lovely smelling, beautiful humus, sort of pure humus. You knock it out of the horns, and so you're using about a small handful, 30 grams or so, in a bucket of water per acre of land, and that's stirred for 1 hour with Vortex stirring this direction, that direction. And there's this, with Vortex, you're getting this pulse develops in it. So if you kind of spin a plastic bottle with your water in it, you'll see a vortex form. but you'll see it forms a pulse, and it's always that sort of heartbeat. Water and movement always forms a pulse, and anything that's pulsing has that moment of order and then chaos. And it's just kind of in these chaos moments, it's the magic moments where things connect with the cosmos or with these ordering forces. They also take in an extra breath of this moment in time, and the whole seasonal aspects of the position of the sun, the position of the moon in relation to the zodiac constellations behind, and through familiarity and, you know, from star watching for 30 years, you can see it directly. I mean, you can get various planting calendars and things that work with that, but to most of what's on the calendar, you can see by looking at the sky and just following it there, and such a living connection with rhythm and time. But yeah, breathing in these ordering forces and bringing that into the land and assisting, that one works particularly. And in a microbiology way, of course, it's just full of beneficial soil bacteria and fungi, which then are then distributed as a sort of micro-inoculation over the land. And so it's helping build the plants to build up that soil. So it's all in combination with the whole living plants and the processes there. And there's another preparation that works kind of with the polarity, the sun, the light, the heavens, the whole aspects, and crystal, the silica crystals that were formed in the earth, you know, thousands of years ago. Silica in general, which makes up, you know, it's high part of any sand or granite rock. There's a lot of silica in the earth, and so either from crystals or quartz of some sort, grinding it up into a powder, and that likewise gets placed in a cow horn and over the summer months, and that is applied is stirred for 1 hour and applied. That one's applied into the air in the morning time. It really is about light and rising up and bringing, and that brings firmness to the leaves, accelerates the photosynthesis processes, high Brix levels in the grapes and generally, you know, crops. It brings that that sweetness, quality, keeping qualities, and there's many. So these two are the kind of balancing field preparations that work between the heavens and the earth. And then there's a set of 6 more herbal-based preparations that work as a sort of weaving in between, this sort of, kind of lemniscate, working between the earthiness, the darkness, the paptuanuku and the ranganui. And I've done worked quite a bit more recently with Jessica Hutchings, who's the author of this book, Te Mahimara of Hua Parakore, and Te Waka Kaiora, the overbody for Maori Organics, developed this as the Hua Parakore as a verification scheme. And you'll notice, for instance, a number of you might buy Biofarm yogurt. It's got the BioGrow stamp on it, and just below it there's the Hua Parakore stamp. They're a Hua Parakore verified farm, their dairy farm. And it has very much enlivened and sold my connection with biodynamics, and that it sort of covers everything, like a number of things that have been spoken of here before, but it identifies 6 sort of main kaupapa or principles, and this is the Te Waka Kaiora, the sort of symbol that relates to that, and you can see it's very much a sort of picture of connection with the earth and the heavens, Papatūānuku and Ranganui. And yeah, but for instance, the whakapapa, and it was lovely, Greg, when we were out there, you started your session today with introducing us to the land and the history of the land. The history is so important, and the cultural history and what's happened before, and the land usage, and as far back as we can sort of research, and to really acknowledge that. And so that's been very good. But you know, and it's just, for instance, with seed saving or saving kumara, for instance, just if you know where your seeds have come from. I've got a friend 20 years ago gave me her Aunt Ruby's sweet peas, and they're these gorgeous crimson, beautiful smelling sweet peas. And, you know, I save a few pods and then I've grown them again, not every year, but now and then I think, oh, I wonder now who Aunt Ruby was. But it's so nice to have Aunt Ruby's sweet peas. And just imagine if you've been growing kumara for generations, and, you know, and there's some varieties that are short keeping but fast growing, and others that are really they're great for storage and keep you going through to the next season. So just knowing those, and just a connection, so that your seeds, you know, they become friends that you know and that you care for, and it's a real two-way relationship with seeds. And yeah, it's much different from buying a kilo of a named, you know, just yeah, that has certainly got its place, but yeah, those personal connections are a big thing. They don't identify the wairua, the sort of spiritual quality, the essence of things. And I think, you know, when you're growing a cabbage, here's my cabbage, but, you know, it's friends with the giant cabbage in the sky. And the more it knows that cabbage, the more it stands here proud to be a cabbage, and it's a strong cabbage because it's strongly connected with that. I mean, we've come into this thing of thinking that, and in a way we've cut the plants off through various means from knowing their connection with the giant cabbage in the sky. And, you know, the genes aren't the only thing that inform the health and the form of a plant. That's what we work with in biodynamics, is helping the plants to know the giant cabbage in the sky and know who they are and be strong. We all know that we're much healthier if we know, you know, and we're confident of ourselves and so if a plant knows that too, you find you just have much less issues with disease and pest problems, because your plants just naturally grow strong. If you seed save as well, you're kind of carrying that. But this kind of confidence that if we can kind of respect the archetypes or the giant cabbage in the sky and kind of feed back to them in a way that they can keep their part of forming, and that even genetic engineering, well, this is just a little thought, but that, you know, in a way genes serve a greater forming force. a greater picture, and that if we garden in the right way or grow in a way that allows them to come back to reconnect with these forming forces, that perhaps we can even correct or overcome the effects of genetic engineering, even perhaps in the extreme. But we know that we can strengthen seeds over generations by working with these general soil and the things that really are strengthening the plants and keeping this connection with the ordering forces. Just quickly through some of these others, I'll perhaps come back to mana. The Maori is the life force, and that's we're all very familiar with. Increasing that through the different means, the composting, various liquid manures or feeding, but the wonderful things we hear about the species diversity and, all the soil life that develops through the diversity of plants, and, use of preparations like this is really helping that soil diversity. So we're kind of used to working with a lot of those. Te Ao Tūroa is around this interconnectedness of everything, as I was saying. Everything is connected and influences each other, both above and below and out sideways. Maramatanga, that's to do, that's really just a sort of knowledge of the light. I've got familiar with to some extent with using a maramataka, and obviously I was following the moon rhythms, and it's based on moon rhythms, but one of the wonderful things for me has just been the system has the cycles of the moon, full moon, new moon cycle, but to keep it in touch in relation to the time of year, it's just sort of start the next month at the new moon following the appearance of a certain star. And, with the Matariki is the main marker star, and the year begins. But just to get to know the stars for each month. And at the moment I'm seeing Potuturangi up there in the morning sky just before an hour or so before sunrise, before the sun gets to, the light comes. And then I know the next star, and you see that come up over the horizon in the morning. And so, just this, it's a very organic aspect to time, and each star has the stories, and that's the great thing. It's just star watching because I started out sort of with star maps and the dots out there, but indeed they do become friends, and there's stories. And these relate very much to the truths of what you see. So what I was saying about, sharing the truths of the stars and loving them, and even just, these sunrise points. I remember one day being with a farmer in India who's had a 40-acre farm and sort of a track down the middle that went north-south, and just walking along with him one morning, seeing the sun coming up, and I said, you must be so familiar with where the sun rises in the different seasons. He said, he just stopped and said, I love that. And it's like, again, I just felt that I love that too, it's so, how it goes so deeply into you. And I've got a bit of a different horizon because, I know the summer solstice point for me is 2 fingers to the left of that neighbour's TV aerial, and the winter solstice here is above the 3rd post of a neighbour's fence over there, and the equinox is always behind an oak tree that's on a bit of a hill a bit further over. But you know, I kind of know, and that connection with my place is quite important. And that's from the point outside my back door, which is just easy. When I get up in the middle of the night to go to the loo, I just open the door and have a look out and see what I'm seeing that night. And, you know, that whole, and then you hop on a plane and you fly to India or somewhere across the world, and, you know, there's your same stars. There's a few, you know, you've lost the Southern Cross or whatever, but, and there's a few new ones, which I got to know all the northern ones while living in India. And yeah, so you kind of know your place. It's lovely. So yeah, I think that may be a slightly chaotic but picture. Perhaps I just, for the final thing, come back to mana. In the way we know your mana or standing is so much depends on that feeling of, like, I can provide for myself. I know where the inputs to my farm come from. I grow my food. I know where my food comes from. I know that I'm feeding family. We've got a social system where people are working, others, and food distribution. It's all, you know, part of a good system, and this so much affects our feeling of self and confidence and position in the world, and a connection with the heights of the heavens and the depths of the earth. And perhaps I'll just finish with a verse from Rudolf Steiner, which is really just connecting the importance of the practical work connected with the bigger picture of the spiritual world. Seek the truly practical material life, but seek it so that it does not numb you to the spirit which is active in it. Seek the spirit, but seek it not in passion for the supersensible, out of supersensible egoism, but seek it because you wish to apply it selflessly in the practical life, in the practical world. Turn to the ancient principle, matter is never without spirit, and spirit is never without matter, in such a way that we say, we will to do all material things in the light of the spirit, and we will so to seek that light of the spirit that it evokes warmth for us in our practical activities. Okay, so thank you.